Well, hello, everybody, and welcome back for another discussion. Today, I thought I'd have a little fun now that we got through some spiral dynamic stuff not too long ago, and I decided that I would talk about some of my ideas for what concerns I would have in terms of recruitment for like an intentional community. Um, and I guess I would probably suggest that if you're not familiar with spiral dynamics, either brush up on that or see the videos that I've made in regards to that, because I'm probably not going to talk a whole lot about what it means, but I may talk about the different levels in spiral dynamic, the different colors, and that might be part of my recruiting. So a little foundation there might be useful to understand where I'm at, but recruiting for an intentional community is going to be one of the most difficult things, I think, about building an intentional community. And how do you get a large scale number of people to see the world closely related enough to be able to get along? How do you set up a system that operates in unity rather than division? And how do we facilitate that? How do we recruit to make that secure? And how do we do that in such a way that we don't become elitist? I don't want to be elitist and say that, well, I'm just going to exclude certain kind of people because we're too elite for that. That's not bringing up the rest of the world either. And I don't want to do that, because if I'm going to do this, it's about bringing up the rest of the world. So how can you build an intentional community that brings up the world without sacrificing the high values that you would need in order for an intentional community to succeed? So I guess first of all, to me, an intentional community, I suppose the first time I thought about it, it was about escapism, but now it's more about, I don't know how else to make the world better. I don't know how else to create a world other than to model what I think is a better way of living, and then doing my best to show that to others. And so I guess my base vision for an intentional community, what I've always really, really wanted, is I want a community that has the base of people that live and breathe the lifestyle. That's all they want. And they want nothing more than to live it and to teach others how to live happier. And we'll talk about how building that, but I also want to talk about the extension of what I really want, so that you understand why I'm going to be so rigid when I'm talking about how I'd recruit. The other part of it is I would want to build like a facility that is almost resort like, and maybe, rent those out to people as vacations, right? Like, I think people would want to stay at a place like this just to see how people live, see what it's like. And so I think that there's a place to have that. So it would be part intentional community, part commune almost, and part high valued people. But then there would be the place where people could come see what we're doing and, I don't know, catch the fire, learn, see what we're doing, rather than reading about it, going, it's a bunch of weird hippies and whatever. Come out, stay a week. If you think we're weird, come out and see our weirdness. It's fine. And I think that that's a unique way to share it. And I think ideally I'd have the ability to give them, nature, or, guided tours, or I'm sure we'd have people on site that are into yoga or other forms of meditation. I'm sure we'd have all this guided, hippie crap that we would do. And so I guess that's my vision. And so this is why, because I have this idea of also making it like almost like a tourist resort type situation, or a place to share that. Well, since that's a focus of mine, I would be really, really rigid in the type of people that come to the community. And I guess I saved this discussion for now because I wanted to talk about spiral dynamics so people understood, I guess, some of the language I'd use, or some of the reasons I'd use that in my recruiting practice. And I think for starters, particularly when I'm small and I can't really afford a lot of disagreement and dissent, there just isn't enough resource to spend the time arguing, then we have to be much more rigid. So I'm guessing for the first 20 or 30 people, I would be hardcore. Nobody with significant tendencies beneath green would probably be invited to to my setup. And the reason for that is one of the problems in the way humans develop. If you look at a model like spiral dynamics, is green is where you start having respect for all the views that are in existence. You can start seeing into yellow. You can start having this assimilated worldview that everybody is just developed to where they're at, and you can kind of be okay with that. And it usually takes somebody developed that high up the chart to really truly have an open mind toward other people's perspectives. And so it's interesting because I talk about basically, like when I talk about it in spiral dynamics, I do call green the dirty hippie level because I think it's funny, but I think it's funny that I'm literally saying that the lowest person that would be at my commune would be the dirty hippie. You'd think that would be the end all be. Well, I don't want to say lowest. I would just, it's a level of understanding that I think is necessary to make this work with minimal conflict. And I think that people that are of green, they might disagree on how much effort we put into certain conservation practices, or they might disagree on the approaches that we have to things, but pretty much green and above is going to fundamentally agree that we need to handle the environment responsibly. And it'll just be details we're quibbling about, not ideology. And I think that's one of the important things, because people below green have significantly different ideology. There's just so much egocentric, selfish natures, and so much, tied up in control and manipulation before green, that I think it really just causes more problems than it would be worth. And I also think that while I would have the hard line at green, I would never invite somebody that I thought had significant tendencies beneath green. I would probably focus on people in yellow. I would probably focus on, because these are the people that are going to be concerned with problem solving. They're going to be concerned with the entire system. They're not going to be thinking about how to build the house. They're going to be thinking about how to build the block or the city or the entire amount of land. They're going to have, these are going to be people that are going to just naturally fall into their thinking of thinking bigger. I talked about this a little bit in spiral dynamics. I think the person obsessed with the carbon footprint is a small thinker now. And that's just because my worldview has evolved to realize carbon isn't the one problem we have. Human laziness and irresponsibility is our nature to not care about things outside of our view is the problem. And so anybody who's not trying to change, the human behavior, anybody who's not trying to evolve the human race beyond that is really just trying to, amputate something or treat a symptom or whatever. And it doesn't really help to treat gangrene by having by washing your exterior. You're just, it's an internal, in fact, you've got systemic problems that you have to deal with. You can't just treat the exterior wound and think that's going to do it. And I think so I think having people that are more in yellow and more systems thinkers, they have that wide scale thing. I think I think that this is a model that could be more successful for recruiting than a lot of other models, because it's the best way that I know how to gauge somebody to where I know that they're open-minded enough to be able to accept other worldviews, that they're open-minded enough to accept other points of view as valid, and they're open-minded enough to accept that there isn't one true path. Because those are really, really difficult concepts with somebody who hasn't developed the skills and the knowledge that they need to be able to understand that. So I'd probably be pretty rigid in that. And the problem with that is that creates a pretty small pool of people around the world. I don't know what it is. I don't know what they're estimating now. I think a few years ago I read that, maybe 2 to 5% of the entire world's population have people that are significantly in that yellow range. So it's a pretty rare group of people that are in that. And it's so that makes recruitment hard. But they're also the kind of people that see enough problems with society that they're going to be the people probably most likely wanting to do this. Of course, green people that are green are going to idealize the intentional community, and green is probably the dominant level right now in the world. Most people are probably predominantly green, uh, just statistically as the world goes. I mean, Europe and Canada are mostly green. Australia is probably pretty green. The United States has a decent chunk of its population probably green. We're probably a little more yellow or orange still than we are green. So we're kind of bringing up the rear a little bit, but that's okay. We're a young country. Of course, we're going to be young societally in how we're developing, and that's okay. But there's going to be plenty of green people, and it's not going to be hard to fill with those. But they're going to be young in the understanding other people's viewpoint, and they're going to be more obsessed with action and action toward the environment and community. And while those are going to be good things that'll be valued, it won't have the system's focus, and bringing them into larger picture work is going to be a challenge, but they'll be abundant as far as recruitment goes. So how do you get enough yellow people to have the vision? How do you get enough yellow people to do the work of thinking through the big problems, and then creating a community, I guess, that allows for, people of the green mindset to come in and work on that. Now, the problem I have with this plan is I don't want to be exclusory to other people. I don't want to say just, oh, you're red, you're out. But I also understand that if we have 30 people that are red and 30 people that are green and above, we're literally going to have two different, very incompatible worldviews. And what do you do? If you're in a democracy, you risk losing your power to the horde of reds. And that just seems like a rough place to be. But I don't want to exclude them. But what do? Do you invite them temporarily? Because here's the problem, right? Like, we can get somebody red to grow faster because we'd have enough people that have the skill sets to understand their worldview. We'd have enough people that could show them kindness and love and respect, and we could give them the opportunity to heal from whatever it was that traumatized them into such a stunted state, and we could help them grow. And so how would we deal with that? I mean, would it be a numbers thing? Would it be, you can only have one person at this level for every, 10 people green and above? And I'm not sure I've thought through the exact numbers or the exact ratio, but I think there's a good basis for understanding recruitment through this model. And it all comes down to the fact that what I like about this model and how it would be in recruiting for a community is that it just defines that point of being able to understand somebody else's point of view. And I don't see how we could go forward with a group of people that literally can't comprehend that somebody else might have a better solution, or that another solution might even exist. And it's just going to be hard to get anything done with that kind of people. I mean, I certainly want a system where I have people in my commune and they don't get a say in their future. But democracy it has its flaws. Like, we all vote for things. It has its flaws. Like, it's subject to corruption. It's subject to lots of problems. But I also don't want to. I don't want to build a society where somebody doesn't get to feel like they have a say. That's just that's tyranny or something, authoritarianism. I'm not gonna do that to people. So I don't want to have a situation where it's like, well, until you reach this level of I don't know, enlightenment, I guess I'd call it, this arbitrary line that I've declared. When you reach there, you get a vote. Well, that seems cruel. I don't want to do that to people. But I also don't want to risk the vision to lesser thought. And so it feels bad. It feels exclusionary, but at least I'm making my judgments based on somebody's capacity, some kind of, tangible, rational testing. It's more than just, are you compatible with me? It's is your mind compatible with going forward with a project that's this difficult to conceptualize and accomplish? And I think that there's a serious threat to a goal like that with too many people that have differing views. Dissent spreads, and and again, this, I mean, it's. Are you trying to control the thoughts of the group by controlling what kind of people get in? And if you only let those kind of people in, are you then building a cult? And are you then pushing people into certain thinking? And maybe, but remember, this is what I like about the resort plan, because the resort would be completely unrestricted. We're talking about the back end, the workers, the people who maintain it, live it 24/7. Some of us would have jobs in the resort, sharing what we do with the visitors. And that would be our time to teach and interact with them. See, because we didn't invite them to come live, we're selling them an experience. And there's a completely different approach to that. They aren't here to have a say. They're here to experience our way of life. So they're not trying to rent a vote or a say. They're just trying to learn what they are. And it's short term for them, right? And there will be places we'll be able to set people up. If somebody's like, yeah, I want to stay here for a year and try it out. Maybe we'll have a certain number of places like that where it's long term, where maybe you don't meet the requirements to enter our community, but you want to try to prove ourselves. Well, maybe you can rent, 3 months, 6 months, a year, whatever, like a normal rental plan. And you come and live the way that we live, and you try out and you try to prove to us that even though you may not meet our facial requirements, maybe you can prove yourself over time, because that's a thing we do as people. And then I wouldn't have to really risk the state of everything on an unknown, because anybody I invited that didn't seem to meet the criteria that we set, probably through a model like spiral dynamics or a model through mental understanding and knowledge, if somebody didn't meet those requirements, I don't want to just exclude them. So this gives a path for those people to get in that gives us minimal risk, because we get to say, well, until you prove yourself, you're going to have to do it this way. And that's okay. There's I see that as a better alternative, because it's not saying that, well, you're part of our community, but you don't get a vote. Well, in a way, that is what we're saying. But on the other hand, we haven't invited you to the community yet. We've invited you to be a friend of the community. We've invited you to help the community, to attempt to fit in. We've invited you to a courting period, but we haven't invited you in. And I think that that's one of the wonderful things that we would have access to with a resort setup like this. And I'm not saying that there won't be problems, because there's going to be the times people are going to come in, they're going to party, they're going to, trash the place. And at the end of the day, mostly we're just going to be better people. We're going to pick it up, and we just won't take that group anymore. And there's risk to being the nicer person. There's risk to being the higher minded person. I'm not saying that I would agree to abuse, but it's just not worth the effort to be mad because there are irresponsible people out there. I'm going to know all of that going into this, and I'm going to do my best to mitigate it, but I'm going to also remember that it's always people involved. And where people are involved, there's a lot of behaviors that aren't intentional or faulty, or even though there's a bunch of rude pricks, I don't hate somebody for being a rude prick. I hate when they're being a rude prick to me. Don't get me wrong, but there's no reason to hate them. Why? All they're doing is what they know best. What they've learned from life works for them. All they're doing is the best that they can, just like the rest of us. And I think that's important to remember as we talk about different levels of something like spiral dynamics. Like when we categorize people like this, we have to remember that it's all humans. And I don't want to just, sit here and be like, oh, I'm grading you like cattle. You go get slaughtered today, and these other ones will go next week. I'm not interested in using spiral dynamics that way, but I am interested in using it as a way to build and protect and find a way to lift people up, including the people that I'm talking about that it sounds like could get left behind or be excluded at some level. But I think that's the importance of creating a path to that, because just because somebody's low doesn't mean that they lack the qualities we would need. Maybe they have the actual genuine curiosity. They definitely have, maybe they have the strength of character to be able to develop. And all they need is an environment to facilitate that. And so you're going to find people in red and blue that are capable of growth that just don't know how to grow. And I guess this gives a way to give them a chance, give them a way to accelerate their growth and maybe achieve things that they never knew in their wildest dreams could be achieved in their mind. And so I think that's the important thing. I guess to me, if I were to ever really actually be able to get into an intentional community or to start that or even control that that process, I think that I think those are a lot of the base thoughts that I would have in getting that done. And I think it's important that we remember that what's the point of building an intentional community if you're not going to utilize that to make the world a better place? Because I don't want to use it to escape. I don't want to use it to hide. I don't want to use it to say, you people I don't like and go away. I want to use it to make the world better. And I guess this is my vision. This is how I see that could be best accomplished. And I guess with that, I guess that's about all I really have to say on really recruiting on that kind of thing. So anyway, I'm glad you're here. I'm glad you came back. I'm glad you made it through this discussion. I hope you enjoyed my thoughts on the matter. Maybe somebody out there looking for intentional communities will glean a new way of looking at how to deal with some of these problems. And with that, until next time, be well.